Hey everyone, it's Chromatic. Today I wanted to talk about resilient keys and kind of the hot topic for debate since this survey that Blizzard put out recently. We're going to kind of go over this and what I think is a better solution to the systems that are in place with them trying to manipulate the incentives to get people to play Group Finder more or LFG more. Um, they're just I think they're going about it the wrong way, and we'll dive into that and how I think they should approach it. So, looking at the survey, um, these are some of the questions they've been asking internally or secret emails to players. So, the first one is: Can Group Finder automatically form a group? Group Finder can automatically form a group for you based on criteria set as the group leader. This would be extremely complicated because a wide range of players want a wide range of things. Everything from a lust to a B-res. I want a specific dispel. Doing a dungeon like Arakara, you don't want a priest healer and a priest damage because we don't have dispels. There are certain mechanics that need to be done that specific classes are much better at. So I'm gonna pick, X, Y, and Z based on what I want for whatever dungeon, based on the meta. And you can see you can just go on and on and on about all these layers of letting Blizzard think that they can choose how they want their players to play the game. So I just don't think this is a good idea. It's too much of a wide range. Next one is group leader key is resilient, protected from depletion for the first key they lead each week. Um, I'll go into the resilient keys explanation in the next couple slides. So we'll skip this one for now. The next one is group leader receives additional crests for completing or for the completion of the dungeon. So this is fine. I mean, it's kind of whatever. For those who cap each week, this is kind of a non-issue, and for those with limited time, this is a good thing. So currently, if you do, I believe it's sevens or tens, you get like 12 or 16 gilded crests, which is you only need to do like five, six, or seven keys a week. So if you do one a day, let's say 30 to 40 minutes, right? You're going to hit cap. So I'm not really sure um, if this is really incentivized people to to put out their key to try and complete it. That doesn't really make sense. Now, obviously, if you're only playing a couple days a week, and you can't do that many dungeons, this is great. So for those kinds of people, this is fine. Doesn't hurt or help really anybody, or it helps those players, but it doesn't really hurt anyone in a negative way. So I think this is okay. Group leaders receive additional Valor Stones for completion of the dungeon. I think a lot of players agree. Would prefer Valor Stones not to even be in the game, but if Valor Stones are a thing going into the future, this is fine. This is the same thing as the crests. They're a resource that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. You farm them, it kind of feels bad, but you do a world quest to collect a couple. For people who spam dungeons, they really don't have an issue now that you can transfer them between characters. And for those who don't play a whole lot, I think this is fine. This is good for them. So just the people who can't do that time sync. Um, Next one is Group Finder will recommend players with a similar skill level to you as Group Finder, or as the group leader. So this is kind of already in the game. Primarily, people look at IO score or item level and kind of set a floor to limit the players that you want to play with. So I'm not sure what they mean by similar skill level, as this is already in the game. So maybe this is like they're trying to do like an LFR where you queue in and um, they artificially set a floor and a ceiling of like 50 IO or 100 IO, whatever that looks like, right? So I'm not sure what they're going with, but something similar is already in the game. And giving the players the choice to set that floor is more, I think players would prefer that more than Blizzard giving the players what they think they want. So, um, next one is Group Finder will recommend players with similar play style or goals to you as a group leader. Again, this is already in the game. There is a goal dropdown that's, I think there's only two options. It's like completion and beat timer or something like that. So I think this is like okay, but maybe we just want more options, which would allow you to have a wider variety of telling other players what my intentions are, of how I want to do this key or what my goal is for this key. And we'll talk about that when we start getting into the what I think the best one is, which is going to be this next slide. So what I think Blizzard needs to do is to set resilient keys to be the time or the level that you have timed. So let's say 13s or 14s. Your key needs to be like then maybe the next reset, your key needs to be one level above that. So if you have resilient 13s, your key needs to be resilient 14. And what this does is it actually, so as we mentioned before, Blizzard's trying to change or manipulate the incentives for people to actually post their key in LFG. But if it's a +1, so if it's a 14 key, this actually incentivizes players to run their own key more often because I want to time that key, right? That's the goal. If you're interested in pushing, right? These are only players who are maybe trying to push to 3K, and that's the goal, right? They need to push up, and then the kind of the medium or high end pushers, they definitely want to keep going and push their key higher and higher and higher. Um, I think one of the bigger points as well is it incentivizes LFG groups to stick together to create more social interactions and teamwork when doing a homework key. So if I'm resilient 13s and I have a 14 Dawnbreaker for this season, I've had a lot of scenarios where I will get into someone else's resilient key and will, brick the first pull because it's a fairly hard pull, 2 or 3 times, and we'll just reset it and go again and reset it and go again. So, but the problem is you have to have someone who already has resilience above you to be even have that option. But what if you as the player had that option to set that forward, right? It gives more people that ability to form a group. Hey guys, we're all trying to time this. Are we cool with doing this 2 or 3 or 4 times to try and get it right, to do better, to make sure we do the correct pulls, right? Because I'll show you later kind of really what happens when you don't have this kinds of incentives going in to a key. Next one is it incentivizes more players to push, knowing that they don't have to slog through timing and depleting several keys in hopes of timing one key with the limited time we have to play the game. Right. So I would assume there are a lot of players who would like to push. It'd be cool, but the time sink to have resilient 13s, my key is a 13, time this and then get one shot at a 14 and then brick it in the first 3 minutes on a first pull, and then I'm back at my 13s. And then I gotta time that again and then get one shot at that key. So I have to time a key just to even get one shot at the next key, which feels really, really bad. Um, Given that we all have a limited amount of time to play this game, whether we have work, kids, family, all that good stuff. Next one would be, and it kind of piggybacks on the prior two. It would allow players who want to get better at dungeons the opportunity to efficiently practice a key with the limited time we have to play the game, given the same RNG that we have today to get the specific key that you're looking for. So I don't want to change any of the RNG. I think that's good in the game. Currently, how it's set gives you an incentive to roll and roll and roll to play the game to eventually get one that you want, and then you can go really focus on that key. We don't have anything that allows us to practice pushing keys, even at a lower level. So I think I mentioned here in the third bullet point, you could set resilience to 5s or 7s or 10s, and no one would be negatively impacted. Those players would then have the option, if they want to try and push higher if they wanted to. Now, obviously, the higher end pushers, they're not going to have this problem. They're practicing all day, every day. So, but for the medium and lower keystone players, that availability and option would be there. We have the same thing for like the follower dungeon. So brand new players can go in to the follower dungeon, see it, feel it out, understand the mechanics of the game, and kind of practice in that kind of safe environment. And then LFR is another kind of way people practice the raid. Um, people who don't want to, either who want to practice or don't want to be in a group, they can go in, learn, and enjoy and see the content, right? And that's kind of a way that they get to just do it over and over and practice and learn, and then maybe join a guild and get a normal heroic and then possibly mythic later down the line. But doing keystones this way just allows people to have the option to efficiently practice their key with the time that they've got. So, and here's kind of the examples of how doing it this way incentivizes more players to, one, post their own key, but would not offset people applying for my key if I was to post it, right? So in this scenario, let's say you have Resi 14s, but my key is a 15, right? I can't go lower than a 15 because that's what I'm trying to obtain. I always want to run my key. I always want to be posting my key to continue to push up the next rung of the ladder, right? And then in the scenario 2, where you've timed a few 15s, right, you'd be a little less incentivized to run your own key because it could just roll to another 15 you've already timed, but it's not so egregious because if you ran that key but didn't time it, it would roll. It has a pretty decent chance to roll into a key that you haven't timed yet as a 15, which is not the case for today, right? If you have a 14, you don't finish that 14, it just rolls into another key of a 14 that you've already timed, which feels really, really bad. But at least in this case, you could roll to another key that you haven't timed. So now you get into scenario 3 where you have most of your 15 times, right? You could have key 5 and 6 timed, where you're kind of really nitpicking 1 or 2 keys that you need to finish that row. So as you time more keys, the level of resistance becomes greater to not run your key, because now you're not as incentivized to run it because it has a lower chance of rolling into a key that you want specifically. I don't think Blizzard will ever give us the option to just, hey, I want this key. So as you time that row of 15s, now I'm gonna like go into LFG and say, hey, I need a 15 Arakara or I need a 15 Dawnbreaker. I'm gonna go apply to other people's keys who's maybe in scenario 1 or 2 trying to get where I'm at in scenario 3 until I complete my 15s. So I really think this creates a lot of incentive. Oh, sorry, real quick. I think this creates the balance where I want to push my own key, but then as I time, I want to go into other people's keys to finish out the last bits. Because what you end up happening if you don't do it this way is where I'm at currently. So currently I'm in Resi 14s and I am trying to get 3 keys done. I believe it's Arakara, Flood, and Halls. And I am sitting, this is 16x speed up. I'm sitting in LFG for 50 minutes waiting to get into a specific key that I want, because timing a 14 and hopefully rolling into a key that I need and then getting one shot at that like feels really bad, because more than likely you're going to brick it because you haven't practiced that enough. And then if it rolls to a key you've already timed, that feels even worse because now you have to pass that to get to a 16, and that's highly unlikely. And now you're back to a 15, highly unlikely. You're just gonna sit at 14s. So it's such a huge barrier to want to push my key. Now, this is what happens when you try to push your key. You brick it on the first pull. You do 2.5 minutes of a dungeon, and it's done. And I'm back in LFG. So for an hour, I sat in LFG for 58 minutes and did a key for 2.5 minutes. This system just does not feel good, and this is what I would do to help incentivize more players to propose their keys into LFG.